And if you're wondering, how could a woman carry and give birth to a giant, just remember that Robert Wadlow was born a normal baby. Robert Wadlow was the tallest person in recorded history. He was 8'11", 439 pounds, and still growing when he died at 22 years old. He had a pituitary gland issue. Okay, his pituitary gland was in some way turned off and didn't tell his body when to stop growing, and he became a giant. Okay, so that's basically all it is. It's a gene that's turned on or off, and you could end up with a giant. All right, now we're going to talk about the post-flood giants. Okay, there's giants returned after the flood. How they returned after the flood is a highly debated topic, and the Bible isn't clear on this. Now, there's three major theories on how the Nephilim returned after the flood. So number one is a giant survived the flood, possibly by holding on to the ark. Okay, that's something that's tossed around and debated. I personally don't buy this argument that the Nephilim survived the flood by holding on to the ark or driftwood, etc. Okay, God is not known to fail. Right. And the Bible tells us in Genesis 7 and 21, right here, all flesh died that moved on the earth. Right. So the Bible tells us, right? And it was just too long of a period of time to hang on to something and survive. And so most people remember from Sunday school of it raining 40 days and 40 nights, that's on the ground ark. That's not true. If you study that out, the time that Noah was on the ark and his family and all was 371 days. Yeah. So it's too long of a period of time by far. Number two, our theory is there was a second fallen angel incursion like the one in Genesis 6. Okay, and this is highly debated. I don't believe in a second fallen angel incursion because this is not backed in the Bible or any other extra biblical text. And it appears that the judgment was so severe that no other angels dared to try this again. And we get this from places like 1 Enoch 68. And on that day, Michael answered Raphael and said, "The power of the Spirit transports and makes me to tremble because of the severity of the judgment of the secrets, the judgment of the angels. Who can endure the severe judgment which has been executed and before which they melt away?" And Michael answered again and said to Raphael, Who is he whose heart is not softened concerning it, and whose reins are not troubled by this word or judgment, word of judgment? So it was extremely severe judgment that none of them even chanced it again. Right. Is what we read. Number three, Ham's wife had Nephilim genes. Remember, Ham's son, Canaan, was cursed? Ham wasn't cursed, but Canaan was. Why was he cursed? You also won't find anything in the Bible or extra biblical text supporting what I'm talking about here, about Ham's wife having Nephilim genes. But you can trace back almost every post-flood giant to the lineage of Ham. Okay, you do find one in Japheth's descendants there. You don't find any in Shem. You find the Amorites had giants. The Philistines is showing one giant, but there was actually 5 of them, right? There was Goliath and his brothers. Right. And then Cush, you have a giant. So we know that they came through the lineage of Ham, none through Shem, and it looks like one through Japheth. Another scripture that seems to debunk the first two theories and lend credence to Ham's wife theory is Genesis 9 and 18. Now the sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from these three, the whole earth was populated. Every human after the flood came through the sons of Noah. And remember, Nephilim were part human. All right, now this is what's known as a Punnett square. Okay, it's a simple diagram. This is what people use nowadays too for showing crossbreeding things, scenarios. So it's a simple diagram that shows the outcomes of a crossbreeding scenario. Okay, if you got dogs or whatever, they use this. Now, according to this, even if the wives of Noah's 3 sons were half Nephilim, as long as the sons were to mean without physical blemish, you have a 50-50 chance of producing a Nephilim offspring or a 50-50 chance of producing a perfectly normal human. And what you find too is if you study out in Enoch, it looks like the 3 sons of Noah got married a week before the flood. So they knew the flood was coming, they had a heads up by God, and they got married. And according to God, all flesh was corrupt. So possibly those 3 women were part Nephilim. Okay, so if you look here on the top left, all right, most of you I'm sure all know, all right, women have 2 X chromosomes. Man is an X and a Y. Okay, so if a woman that we're talking about, one of these wives, is corrupted, if she's half Nephilim or part Nephilim or whatever, one of her X chromosomes is going to be corrupt, the other one's not. So what it boils down to is if the female passes on her bad X chromosome, you end up with a Nephilim. If she passes on her good X chromosome, you end up with a normal human male or female. So what this proves is that even if all of the 3 wives of Noah's sons were half Nephilim, you could still end up with a normal bloodline like we did through Shem that leads up to Jesus, or you could end up with a cursed bloodline like we see through Ham that leads to many giants. Let's take a deep breath, because I know that some of you have had your mind blown, and others are saying this is bull crap, BS. Well, I have a video that takes some of this mystical aspect out of the subject. You're going to like this. These big cats are what is known as a liger. So it's a male lion and a female tiger. They're crossbred, and this is the product. They grow to an enormous size, about 900 pounds and 12 feet tall. And this isn't beneficial for them at all in the wild. But what scientists have found is that the growth inhibitor gene is in the female lion and the male tiger. So without the growth inhibitor gene present, there's nothing to tell it when to stop growing. And this is what you end up with.
It's theorized that ligers are this enormous size because the inhibitor growth gene exists in the female lion and in the male tiger. So when you switch around and you get a male lion breeding with a female tiger, creating the liger, you get this gigantic size. Nothing tells it when to stop.
And what's funny is most of these ligers' names, they're named after Nephilim. Hercules, Zeus.
Yeah, that's about right.
So it really is as simple as that, okay? So the growth inhibitor gene exists in the female lion and the male tiger. So if you breed the male lion with the female tiger, there's nothing genetically to tell it when to stop growing. Okay? So just turning on or off a gene will give you a giant. And if you're wondering, how could a woman carry and give birth to a giant, just remember that Robert Wadlow was born a normal baby. Robert Wadlow was the tallest person in recorded history. He was 8'11", 439 pounds, and still growing when he died at 22 years old. He had a pituitary gland issue. Okay, his pituitary gland was in some way turned off and didn't tell his body when to stop growing, and he became a giant. Okay, so that's basically all it is. It's a gene that's turned on or off, and you could end up with a giant. So we see that the angels created giants, but we also find that the giants created giants. Okay, Numbers 13 and 33, there we saw the giants. The descendants of Anak came from the giants. And we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. 2 Samuel 21, and Ishbi-Benob, who was one of the sons of the giant. 2 Samuel 21:18. Now it happened afterward that there was again a battle with the Philistines and God. And Sibbecai, the Hushathite, killed Saph, who was one of the sons of the giant. 2 Samuel 21:20. Yet again there was war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number, and he also was born to the giant. So noted features of giants that you find is that they have 6 fingers and 6 toes, sometimes, right? This is the reason that Indians would greet strangers by raising their hand. They wanted to make sure that their stranger didn't have 6 fingers. Remember how they walk up and say, "How?"
Yeah,
The how is Hollywood, but they would raise their hand so they could see how many fingers they got. Okay? They also, a lot of times you find they had 2 rows of teeth in the skeletons they found, and they also had red hair a lot of times.
And what?
Red hair. So you come across these features.
Yeah.
You come across these features quite often in modern news articles from the past. 6 fingers and 6 toes, 2 rows of teeth, and red hair. And yeah, I'm sure everybody in here right now is thinking of somebody that knows with red hair, right? In modern times, people would dig up giant skeletons on their property or find them in caves. And the last thing that you would read about the giant skeletons is how the Smithsonian Museum showed up to help. And you never heard anything about the skeletons again. This is known as Smithsonian Gate. There's actually a term for it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, so they've got a warehouse full of these giant skeletons somewhere that they keep hidden to protect their evolution theory. Okay? And that's because the giants go against their precious evolution religion. All right, that states that men evolved over millions of years, you know, that we got bigger, faster, stronger, smarter over long periods of time. You know, if they come up with a skeleton of a Nephilim here and they say, well, you know, maybe people were 10 foot tall and extremely intelligent, built all this, well, that messes up evolution altogether. But I'm going to throw something else out there that I came across that I think somebody's right. If they find, and I expect they're probably going to find a Nephilim skeleton soon, and whenever they go to researching that skeleton, all the DNA from it, they're going to find that it's half human. And they're going to try and tell you, hey, you know what? It looks like the aliens were mating with the humans in the distant past. That's where all this came from.
Right.
You know, but not only that, if they find Nephilim skeletons and all, that immediately makes people start thinking about the Bible. Oh, you know, maybe the Bible's true. All right, 2 Samuel 21:22. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath, and fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. Okay, these were the 4 brothers of Goliath of Gath that David killed. This is the reason David took 5 smooth stones from the brook.
Right.
It only took 1 to kill Goliath, but he was prepared to kill the other 4 brothers if need be. Now, how tall were the Nephilim? Well, Numbers 13 and 33 says, there we saw the giants, the descendants of Anak came from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. Now, this is the bad report given by the 10 spies who went to Canaan. But Joshua and Caleb never disputed what these guys were saying about how tall they were. They only said that we are well able to overcome them. That's it.
Right.
They didn't dispute what they were saying. Okay, this does sound like a bit of a stretch, but it's further backed by Amos 2 and 9. Amos 2 and 9 says, yet it was I who destroyed the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of the cedars. And he was as strong as the oaks, and yet I destroyed his fruit above and his roots beneath. This is Amos declaring what the Lord has said, and I really don't think the Lord is one to exaggerate. Deuteronomy 3 and 11. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained in the remnant of the giants. Indeed, his bedstead was an iron bedstead. Is it not in Rabbah of the people of Ammon? 9 cubits is its length and 4 cubits is its width, according to the standard cubit. Well, you hear debates about how long a cubit is, okay? But there really shouldn't be a debate at all. We just need to remember who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible? Who wrote this book? Well, it was Moses. Moses was trained and taught in all the ways of the Egyptians. So he was an Egyptian cubit, okay, which was 18 inches, right at 18 inches. Therefore, King Og's bed was 13 and a half feet long and 6 foot wide. And it was made of iron. Made of iron. 1 Samuel 17:4, and a champion went out from the camp of the Philistines named Goliath from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. So this puts Goliath at 9 foot 9 inches. And the Bible describes several different tribes of giants in the post-flood era. And this depiction shows how they were all related. And I'm not going to go through all of that, but it just, you'll see this on the YouTube channel, or if you want to take a picture or whatever. The Israelites were given the land of Canaan by God, and it was full of Nephilim. God commanded them to go in and utterly destroy the 7 Canaanite nations. Okay, Deuteronomy 7:1, when the Lord your God brings you into the land which you go to possess, and has cast out many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, I need my glasses, 7 nations greater and mightier than you, and when the Lord your God delivers them over to you, you shall conquer them and utterly destroy them. You shall make no covenant with them, nor show mercy to them, nor shall you make marriages with them. God wants to utterly destroy these 7 nations. This doesn't sound like a very nice, merciful God. And then you get verses like 1 Samuel 15. Samuel also said to Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore heed the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel, how he ambushed him on the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, infant and nursing child, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. Okay, a lot of people see this and are really left wondering about the God we serve. Okay, but what if there was more to the story? What if these people were Nephilim? And why kill the animals too? Okay, could there have been some of the same genetic manipulation happening to the animals like before the flood? All of a sudden, these events start to make sense.
Yes.
Okay, what became of the post-flood giants? The 4 kings that kidnapped Lot defeated the Rephaim in Ashtaroth, the Zumim and Ham, and the Emil and Seir. The Horites were defeated by the descendants of Esau, which was the Edomites. Moses defeated some in Bashan, including King Og. The rest of Israel, led by Joshua, defeated their remnants west of the Jordan. Saul and David defeated the Nephilim remnant, and there were only 3 places that the Nephilim remained. And we read that in Joshua 11 and 21. And at that time, Joshua came and cut off the Anakim from the mountains. It talks about Anakim being giants. Anakim from the mountains, from Hebron, from Debir, and from Anab, and from all the mountains of Judah, and from all the mountains of Israel. Joshua utterly destroyed them with their cities. None of the Anakim were left in the land of the children of Israel. They remained only in Gaza and Gath and in Ashdod. Take note of how Joshua defines victory. None of the Anakim were left in the land of the children of Israel. Not there were no humans left in the land. You know, we defeated all the humans. None of the Anakim were left. Okay? He doesn't even say that there were no more Canaanites in the land. Remember, they were killing Canaanites too. Okay? He says there are no more Anakim in the land. And we proved that the Anakim were the descendants of Nephilim. And these 3 areas where Joshua failed to completely defeat the Anakim are still in dispute to this very day. Today, these 3 areas are known as Gaza, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights. Now, demons seem to be territorial. And if demons came from the Nephilim, that would explain why these 3 areas have vowed for the genocide of God's chosen people. the nation of Israel.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow.
Yeah.
So I know this has been a lengthy teaching, right? But I intended it to be very thorough, right?
Yeah.
This is a subject that the majority of Christians know very little about, and I do want to take a few minutes and show you some evidence of the giants. Okay, first is just a couple of things we read about. March the 20th, 235 AD, Maximus Thrax was proclaimed emperor of the Roman Empire. He was between 8 and 8.5 foot tall. He was a colossal man and feared amongst his peers. Nobody would mess with him. He went through the ranks. He wasn't even like one of their normal soldiers. He came from somewhere else, from Thrax. And they made him emperor. There are numerous accounts by Native Americans that were passed down. And this is apparently why the Indians would hold up their hand like we talked about when a stranger came upon them. They wanted to ensure the stranger didn't have the 6 fingers. The Indians claimed that all of the Indian burial mounds and serpent mounds in the U.S. were constructed by giants. That's what the Indians tell us. Buffalo Bill Cody wrote the following words about a legend recounted to him by members of the Sioux tribe. It was taught by the wise men of this tribe that the earth was peopled by giants, who were fully 3 times the size of modern men. They were so swift and powerful that they could run alongside of a buffalo, take the animal up under one arm, tear off a leg, and eat it as they ran. So vainglorious were they because of their own size and strength that they denied the existence of a creator. And when it lighted, that means lightning, they proclaimed their superiority to the lightning. When it thundered, they laughed. This displeased the Great Spirit, and to rebuke their arrogance, he sent a great rain upon the earth. The valleys filled with water, and the giants retreated to the hills. The water crept up the hills, and the giants sought safety on the highest mountains. Still the rain continued. The waters rose, and the giants, having no other refuge, were drowned. So even the Indians over here believe that centuries.
Yeah.
The eyes of that species of extinct giant, whose bones fill the mountains of America, have gazed on Niagara as our eyes do now. Abraham Lincoln. Washington Herald, May 31st, 1919. Seymour, Texas. Oil drillers claim to have found bones of a prehistoric giant 10 feet tall. Vancouver Sun, August 18th, 1922. Mexico City. The Department of Agriculture yesterday received from an agent on Tiburon Island, Gulf of California, the skeleton of a primitive man more than 10 feet tall. It was found a few days ago. Other bones of a similar size have been encountered. They came across a lot of this turn of the century and in the 1800s and stuff. And then, of course, the Smithsonian showed up to help them out. Okay, and then, so the skeleton of a prehistoric man of large size has been found at a town 10 miles southeast of the city of Mexico. According to the news received here yesterday, and watch how politically correct they are, right? The discovery was made by a peon. So that's politically correct. Discovery was made by a peon who unearthed the skeleton, which measured about 15 feet in height. It probably will be turned over to the National Museum in Mexico. The find has revived the Aztec legend that ages ago a giant race inhabited parts of the Mexican plateau. Okay, September 27, 1924, Elkhart, Indiana. Dispatch from Cassopolis, Michigan says that on opening a mound near Diamond Lake Wednesday, a giant of prehistoric race was unearthed. The bones of the skeleton are well preserved. The lower jaw is immense. And an ordinary jawbone fits inside with ease, fits inside the jawbone they found. By measurement, the distance from the top of the skull to the upper end of the thigh bone was 5 feet 5 inches. A doctor, this is a doctor, they knew how to tell what a person's supposed to look like, anatomy, even 100 years ago. The doctor who was present stated that the man must have been at least 11 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
The mound was partially covered by a pine stump 3 feet 6 inches in diameter, and the ground showed no signs of ever having been disturbed. An earthen tablet upon which was various unintelligible characters and other relics were found. So they found tablets and everything here. Hopkinsville, Kentuckian, so April 23rd, 1897. The bones of a 10-foot giant in height were found near Lewisport. Cartersville, Georgia, April 4th. The water has receded from the tumbling mound field and has left uncovered acres of skulls and bones. Some of these are gigantic. If the whole frame is in proportion to the 2 thigh bones that were found, their owner must have stood 14 foot tall. Many curious ornaments of the shell, brass,
And stone.
and stone, have been found. Some of the bodies were buried in small vaults built of stones. The whole makes a mine of archaeological wealth. A representative of the Smithsonian Institution has been here investigating the curious relics.
Never seen again.
Yeah, Smithsonian showed up to help. Over the past 200 years, more than 1,000 accounts of 7-foot and taller skeletons have been found across North America. That's just North America. The picture on the left was taken in San Francisco around the turn of the century. Okay, you're not going to find anything nowadays, right? But 100, 150 years ago, they actually took pictures and sketches and all this kind of stuff, and all that was preserved on fish tape. Okay, so it couldn't be taken out by the Smithsonian or whoever, I guess, or they couldn't find it. Fossilized Irish giant. The giant on the right was apparently unearthed in County Antrim, Ireland, and found to be 12 foot 2 inches high. Its girth of chest was 6 foot 6 inches, and length of arms was 4 foot 6 inches. There are 6 toes on the right foot. The skeleton was on display in exhibitions in Dublin, Liverpool, and Manchester. What later happened to the giant and its owner is unknown. Okay, this was in a magazine in 1895. It's extremely difficult to find pictures of these giants that were mentioned in these articles. The ones that I am showing you are real, and they were preserved on microfilm. You can find tons of fake pictures of giants thanks to a Photoshop contest that was held in 2002. I think that was a scheme also by Satan. Then you can't find anything real on the internet. You can find plenty of fakes. These are pictures of a giant's finger that is in an anonymous person's personal collection. The finger is 16 inches long. The finger is 16 inches long, and supposedly from an Egyptian giant. You can also find lots of stone carvings across the world depicting giants. See the giant sitting on the throne on the bottom right, and normal-sized men on the left. And then right above that, you got some giants with, other men brought in as slaves. On the left are a couple of statues of Gilgamesh, or Nimrod as we know him, with his pet lion. Supposedly he had a pet lion he toted around. So Gilgamesh was huge, and if you study into that, it looks like Gilgamesh did something to himself to become a giant. And on the bottom right, we have a 5 to 6 meter tall giant, so 15 to 18 foot tall in ancient Egypt. And to keep it in perspective, this is me and my family next to a somewhat proportionate statue of a 16-foot giant in San Antonio.
Wow.
So this is what a 16-foot giant, that's what it would look like compared to a normal person. On the left is another depiction of giants with a giraffe. On the right is a normal-sized person next to a giraffe. For reference. Here's a picture of a giant footprint in stone. More footprints or feet print, whatever you'd say. And some of these, for some reason, are in a vertical position. I don't understand that, but more footprints. More and more.
We can't even imagine.
Oh. And a giant handprint, almost like it was formed in molten rock. And it looks like Bigfoot was hanging around here also.
I was just going to say, could this be Bigfoot that we don't see?
Maybe the Bigfoot.
Yeah. And some more footprints there, next to some Indians. And I'm not sure if you can make it out here, but that's 2 huge lakes that was taken from up on a mountain.
Oh my goodness.
Now, I hope you got something out of this, and I'd like to leave you with one more verse. Daniel 2:43. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Take careful note here what Daniel is saying. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Whatever they are in this verse, they have to be something other than the seed of men. They're not human. So be prepared for a return of the Nephilim. This is about the end times. And this is what we'll be discussing in our next lesson. And this is the front page of it.
That was good.
This is a list of all of my references for you.